and I don't have enough a caseload in one school, I could be assigned and I'm just randomly calling off schools, like to PS20, to PS21, to PS22, right? Say my largest caseload, that is my payroll school, meaning that's where my check comes from, all my stuff is designated. When COVID hit and they didn't want so many staff members going in and out of different schools, they said the itinerant teachers will stay at their payroll schools. That's what the issue became.
Was that for the blended part, or was that for the remote as well?
Well,
if they were doing remote services, or is it for just the school that they get their payroll from, or that's only for when they're blended?
No, they deliver services to every student, all schools, but it's all remote unless it's their payroll school. So like if you're a blended student, you'd be getting remote services anyway, right? But if you were in school if you were remote, you'd be getting remote services. But if you were blended, there's a chance that if your teacher was not on accommodation, that you would get the services live. But if you are part of an itinerant triad, let's say, and you don't, and the teacher or provider is, your school is not their payroll school, then you only get virtual services.
Okay.
So it's not that you're not getting services, but they're virtual.
But let's say that particular child that's getting the remote services was the better candidate for in-person learning, like making that decision, can hinder one or the other child, because you're not basically going off of the child's need, you're going off of just how you feel the person should be or where they should be located, which that's what's happening now. A lot of the kids probably need to be in school. They function better in the schools, and the remote services is not beneficial to them. So that one kid that's, that was getting the physical learning is now only getting remote, and it's probably not the best. So that would be something that we would have to speak to the union about as well, or?
Well, it's a question that you could ask Central, because the negotiations are made between Central and the union. So it's the concern, I think, would go to Central.
Okay.
Right. I just forgot what I was going to say.
Esther has her hand up.
It's a crazy day.
That's a hand, or is that part of the picture?
What?
Esther's hand. Is that her hand?
It's part of the picture.
It's part of the picture.
Oh no, yeah. But I will say, Akila, one of the things that we've done in District 25 is all of our schools now are 5 days a week, right?
Okay.
Priority to special education.
I'm here. I couldn't unmute. I'm sorry. I'm here.
Yeah. So if there's room in a school and a special education student, like you said, the parents have said, they're really not functioning in the remote environment and they need to come back to school, we prioritize that. We allow them to come back to school. Right now, there's only one school, and that's 379, that can't accommodate all kids coming back to school. But many of the requests that are being put in, especially special ed, which is prioritized, and ELs, they are prioritized as well too. If they want to come back to school and there's room, we're granting that accommodation to come back to school.
Oh, okay.
The other concern that is also coming up, and I don't know if they'll change that, but I have escalated this to Central, and this is the other piece that we were talking about. It's also come up at CEC. It came up with the special education parents from certain schools, is the 2 unrelated case closure rule, right? So one of the things that they've been talking about is that outside of New York City, they don't have the 2 unrelated case closure rule. They do have testing, they have, test and trace, they have all of those things, but if there are more than 2 cases, they really, they don't close the schools. They lean towards what the Department of Health will say. I think New York City and the work with Department of Health, Test and Trace, and the DOE, they currently have that 2 unrelated case closure rule. There are some schools that have been closed for a significant amount of time. And we have been hearing from special education families, especially families from Nest and Horizon, where their children have missed, upwards of 30 days of school because of school closure. It's not that they're not getting virtual. They do shift to virtual, but they were just talking about the learning needs of these students being different, and they're asking to not have the 2 case closure as long as the infectious rate of certain schools stays low. So right now I've escalated all of those concerns. And so the city is aware of that, but you might want to include that in anything that you would want to write in terms of a resolution. I will say that is my #1 complaint that I get over the past couple of weeks, maybe the past 3 or 4 weeks.
That struggle also, the schools that have multiple schools in the building, 2 cases for the building. It's not 2 cases per school. It's the whole, that's one of my issues, and I've heard from many other parents, is that when school has 2 cases, all 3 schools in the building shut down.
Correct.
Because they quarantine the address, apparently, not the school.
Right.
Wow.
That's hard for a lot of kids. A lot of kids are impacted by 2 cases in one school. Doesn't matter the hundreds of other kids, the others, they're all lumped together.
Yep. And that goes to, I think, Akila, what you were saying, just in terms of special needs students having to be in school because they need that interaction with adults, with their peers, in order to support their learning. That 2 case rule, and then that's the balance, right? It's the balance between safety and what's safe, and then keeping our schools open and how well and effectively we can do that. But I definitely would say, if you are open to the conversation and you went out into the communities, through however you wanted to do it, a forum or whatever, that it would be something you would hear as a complaint from parents.
I can imagine.
So the rest is up to you guys.
Anne-Marie, Brooke?
Well, my opinion, it doesn't sound like we need a resolution anymore. It sounds like we need an information session again, something that's the whole meeting, maybe a forum to get, to get feedback from parents, certainly. But with statistics like Danielle just gave, we don't really have, I think a bigger problem here is information getting out there. And I think we saw that from that meeting that we had in, what was it, February or January. I think we should do it a combo thing, maybe a forum to get information and a repeat information session.
You might, Anne-Marie, given some feedback that you get from the community, you might want to turn that into a resolution, like some of those concerns. And then be inclusive of the need for special education teachers, the service provider rule, the 2 rules closure rule, and the bilingual special ed teachers, like you.
Right. Those are the exact things that I've been hearing. So what you just, those are the main problems. We know that's the main problems.
So I think if the subcommittee and the CEC, and that's where we said, and I think you guys, just in terms of your special meeting, it was like, do we sign on to that petition that is so global that not every part of the petition applies to us? Or do we kind of hone in on what our specific needs are, and then write something surrounding that, or even a statement from the CEC that could go to central if it's not just a resolution, right? Like you guys might want to say a statement such as the borough office should do this presentation 3 times a year or whatever that is, just to make that, because I know Akila asked for it and it's only done when Akila asks for it, you know? So,
Yeah, Akila.
and every time it's done, there's always people that say like, wow, I'm glad we did that. Or like the community benefited from this, or now everyone has this information. So that might be that a recommendation where it says like that there are parent forums held around communicating outreach beyond the school.
I also feel like a lot of our problems are not so much district, but really city. They're really just the two closing rule. That's a citywide issue. Certain of the issues that we have going on here really aren't in control of the district. It's what's trickled down, right?
Right, but I think that if we bring the awareness to it, then we can draw in other CECs to
Right.
Right.
I think that's the direction we need to steer towards rather than.
And then it'd be a collab. So if they see more of the districts doing it together and showing more awareness of it, no matter, somebody has to start it somewhere, and the idea is out there. So, we could get our foot in there first to, give the information at some point. And you're right, because when we did it the last time, we started off with the what was it, the general information on IEPs. When you had one of the ladies come out and she gave us the basic on how you prepare for IEP, questions, things of that nature. It was like information I should have received when I first started with my sons.
Right.
And my daughter.
Exactly.
There's no guidebook. There's no manual. There's no handbook that says, here, this is what you need to do.
Right.
Especially if the recommendation comes from the school, right? So like, say you know nothing,
right,
and the school makes a recommendation, right? And now you find yourself in an IEP meeting and you don't know what to do, even though there's that formal, we're going to tell you your rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But even sitting through that, because I did that with my own son, I was like, what is this?
Right.
You don't understand. I didn't really understand it until like the 4th year. And then I went into the meeting and I was like, all right.
Once you get the feel for it.
Right.
And there were a lot of people that had came to that meeting. And that was one of the meetings we had a lot of people, because there was a lot of principals and teachers there. I forgot what else went on that particular day we had the meeting. But a lot of people walked away, was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Right.
It wasn't just the parents, it was the educators that were there as well. So it was like, maybe we should at some point do that balance, do where the CECs may get familiar with it, where this be part of it, where the parents can come and see the basic learning from the beginning, towards the middle. They can, we can have, everybody like we had the last time come out and have a meeting that way, where if it starts happening often, just like when they do the, what's that meeting that they always have in January and February?
SCA.
Right. Those meetings are regular. They've been doing it so much that it's like clockwork and it's familiar. Maybe if we start doing that more with our CEC, that it'll start, you'll have other parents going to other CECs saying, well, District 25, make sure that they get that information for special ed out there every time, when the beginning of the school year starts, or they have a special meeting in January and February, depending on however the situation goes. But I think we just have to start the conversation. We have to.
And you know what? And that could be something that you would present to CEC around, like, we want these 3 areas touch points throughout the year, however it's done. It could either be done at a CEC meeting, or it could be done at a separate forum, like, Carly had said that you guys can do something separate. But so you mentioned 2 things, Akila, that the community was really responsive to, right? So the first was what we just did, which was communicating outside of school and who's all the resources, the people that you can get resources from. And then the second was that whole piece of IEP kind of 101, like, what do you do? How do you prepare for that? What does that mean? What does that look like?
Can I ask you a question along those lines, Danielle? So with what Akila was saying, when I went to the school for my daughter, for instance, okay, and I said there's something wrong with her reading, the school didn't tell me that I could insist on having an IEP meeting. So they said, oh, it's too soon. So I wanted a meeting to evaluate her, but they kept saying it's not necessary. She was too young for it. So I didn't know that I could demand it. And no one from the school said, well, you can request it and we have to do it. Like, that's the piece. Like, is there a reason why the school can't say, well, you can do this? We don't agree, or we don't think it's necessary right now, but here's a guideline of what you can think about these factors. You can request this, and this is your right. Like, why is there no little cheat sheet of what your rights are?
Right. So the school's first role, when we talk about MTSS or RTI for students, is to kind of hone in to see if through a series of RTI, they can close some of those gaps that you were talking about. So that should be the first thing that they do if a parent comes and makes that recommendation. But, and then following that 8-week cycle, they would move towards making a recommendation for testing. But you're right. I don't know if...
Is there a conflict there? Is there a reason why the school can't say?
No, there's not. I think that their kind of their first line is really about, can we target and fix this learning gap through RTI, right? That's the first part of the special education process for a school. I think, Anne-Marie, and I could give some scenarios, but not 100%. But sometimes, if that's our work to try to, through RTI, support a student and close those gaps, testing sort of kind of hinders that, right? Because if you're doing RTI and testing at the same time, then they could, intermingling them, you may not get the best results.
Right.
So, so a school might not say you can write a letter for testing, because once they write the letter, then the clock starts and you have 90 days. And then between 8 weeks and 90 days, it's going to be really hard to calculate sort of where a student is, right? So,
even things I think a lot of the problem with some of our parents in the community is the language barrier for the parents as well as the students. And I think some of our parents don't really grasp what's going on at the IEP meetings because they don't have a strong enough language grasp themselves. So, and parents may not know they can ask for a translator, or they can ask for a parent, or they can bring a parent advocate. There's so much information that people don't know that they can do or are entitled to.
Danielle, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Carly.
Remember when we used to be in person, there used to be a booklet that it was very hard to find, but it was a booklet for special education. It was know your rights one. Do they have that type of thing online still?
They do, but I think that you get to know your rights as you start the process.
Oh,
I think
that's
Anne-Marie
true.
is really speaking before the process. Right?
Right.
So Anne-Marie, you just spoke about a couple of things that I can offer as a district to you guys. The workshops that we offer, Esther and Jinmei just did 2 parent chats in Spanish and Chinese. And we asked them the same questions that we asked our English speaking parents. And we just wanted feedback about what blended and remote learning is like for them and their students, and what we can do better, and all parents across all languages said the same 2 things, right? And so if that's also something that you guys have as a concern, you can put that in a list. You could add that to the list of things you might want to include in some sort of document, right? Or you could add it to the list of communications to families, however you wanted to do that. But Esther and Jinmei would be more than happy to be in a meeting with you and translate for you, or whatever you would want from the district, just in terms of offering that. We would be happy to do that. So I think for you guys, it's just about where do you guys want to go with this together? given all the information that I just threw up on you. So I'm gonna leave now to go to President's Council. And you guys can talk out the rest of where you want to go with this. Esther and I are here and we are happy to do whatever you choose, right? So if you guys need the PTA dates and links, we can send those to you. If you guys want, you know, us to be part of any kind of forums that you are planning on doing, we're happy to do that. You know, whatever you guys want, we're here.
Real quick, before you leave, a survey. If we was trying to put together a survey, who can help us with that?
Louis
Okay,
and Carly,
and Carly.
right? So, I mean, you can give Carly the information and Carly can work through it. She's done a lot of work with Louis around surveys. She can do it herself. And if she gets stuck, she can reach out to Louis. But I mean, look, we just surveyed about 600 parents, K to 12, 600 SLTs, K to 12, and we got a great response back, you know? So, yeah, you could do the surveys too, however you want to do. Or you could do both. You could survey and, you know, one of the things that I just heard our new chancellor say when she was talking to parents, and they were actually speaking to us from the DOE side. They were basically saying, not everything is a survey, right? Surveys are a place to start, but then a conversation should happen. So, okay.
All right, thanks, Danielle.
All right.
Thank you,
guys.
Danielle.
I'm looking forward to where you guys go with this because I think there's a lot of promise here. No, really. And, you know, Anne Marie and Brooke, I thank you for your knowledge and for the work that you've done. And Akila, I mean, like, look how far we've come, right? Like, just from, I say from the start, this is, you know, I think like what we finally got to a place where, you know, the community is going to have an opportunity to have a voice for special education, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can continue. I hope I can, I can get a couple more years.
yeah, I hope, yeah, hopefully you guys are all running.
You will.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thanks again.
Take care. All right, Esther, I'll see
Bye,
you there.
everyone. Bye.
See you at President's Council.
Y'all going to President's Council, ladies?
Bye.